Morning in progress. Good to see you all and everybody who's joining and stepping in. So this will be, say, for me at least, a different presentation. As otherwise, because now we're going into data and what it means for us and how we could use it, say, as a coach or as a leader or as a learning and development manager who's busy for that. So it's a different kind of view. People are still joining in, so that's okay. Also good to see you back again, Leona. I don't see everybody. That's a pity. I don't know how I can make even more people visible. Hey, Ariane is also there. I saw her yesterday. I know you're now your score, Ariane, of 34, 34, 37. You're one of the few who have that score rather close to each other. But I know your gut brain is the highest, so okay, we're warned. Okay. What does this do today? Yes. As always, we're going to have fun. Well, we're going to dive into data. And I like it because, as you know, if you did the test like Ariana did, you get a feedback back. What is now my dominant brain, how we decide. So how's this set up, this webinar? And this a little bit just short, okay, where did it all came from? That is my three-brain test and what I once read in a research document of McKinsey. From there, I started to analyze, hey, what's happening, got all the data, and I put them also in advices against some, say, in my opinion, well-known ideas, how we actually do leadership or how we are great leaders. From Paul Zek, the trust factor, to the 5 dysfunctions of the team, and some of the kind of little topics to look at from, okay, how can you put this data somewhere in a development path, and what do we know actually from what are good leaders? And of course, as I said also yesterday, for the people who were yesterday, if you have a question, if you agree, if you don't agree, if something else pops up, you can put it in the chat right away, or you can just unmute yourself and just start saying, hey, Chris, whatever happens, don't agree or have a question. Because the more interaction, the more we learn from each other. And now, when I saw the list who signed up, many of you are really high experienced professionals. So it's always nice to have that feedback and insight from there. And also, what I saw, all from all different kind of countries with there. So we also have a lot of different cultural dimensions there, because also my tests actually comes out of, you could say, 6 primary sources. I have 15 languages you can do by testing, but 6 or 7 really have a number above the 200 responses, so give some valid data. If you say you have one country, I think Malaysia has 15 responses, it's not really suitable in that part. Okay, but let's dive in. Let's first start for the people who don't have a lot of time, so I have an extremely high gut brain, so I can give me just an executive summary and then I can skip out. 3 things that at least were partly surprising for me, I have to say. And it is, although I love to say that always, many development paths target the wrong, you could say, variable, the wrong really learning or differentiation.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that later, what we really mean with that. And you can see already here what it means. The heart brain, and we talk about brains, it does not have a massive difference compared with middle management and higher management. We'll come back to it later. The other thing that really was interesting, and I have to say, it fitted my ideas that the gut brain is really important for senior management or for leaders, but actually it was lower than expected. Sorry, I'm going to let my dog out. Otherwise, he keeps on barking because my partner comes home and I close the door and he's then just now behind the door, almost from, tension. Okay, so the gut brain, I expected it would be a little bit higher. On the other hand, it gives a beautiful insight actually where the difference is between middle management and higher management. And the third one is, okay, I don't know who views coach, but on average, you have a different brain than your clients in brain dominance. And what does it mean actually if we start coaching people? Of course, opposites attracts, but also gives sometimes difficulties in communicating and connecting with each other. So those three things really came out. So first, the two main things I was looking at. One, let's start with mine first. Of course, the most important one, kidding. Mine first. And it is for the people, now Ariana knows it now, scientifically proven. We have three intelligent systems. I love to call them three brains because they're actually brains. So we have, of course, that beautiful thing in between our ears. 40 billion neurons is extremely important. And having said that, we could also say it has a function, and the function is to predict how our life goes, what is more and less important for us. It is the only part of our body that actually knows what is tomorrow and what is yesterday. And so for everybody actually who likes them, I just had lunch in Spain, and I was seeing all the beautiful bites. For everybody thinks, okay, I like to lose weight. Your head brain, knowing what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat, is not really your solution in that part. I can tell you when I had to choose the menu from, what is logical and healthy and what looks yummy. And I can tell you it took me, I think, 5 minutes to make the decision. And the other brain we have is the heart. And for everybody thinks, how does that work? Now, who of you ever, I asked the question yesterday too, who ever of you had someone like a broken heart? And not physically broken, please, but more emotionally broken because one of your ex-partners was just a beep. Let's call it like that. And I see Gabi can also join. Yes, Gabi also joined right away. And that's where we feel it. Our heart feels actually connection and disconnection. And scientifically, it's proven it has 40,000 brain cells or neurons for independent decision making, and actually also connects with the bonding feeling. Your heart is really about, am I accepted? Can we be bonded? Can we stay connected? And actually have a fear for being rejected. Where your head just likes to have logical Excel sheet, numbers and facts, is almost like your perfect chief financial officer. I don't know who's chief financial officer for, say, the boring chief financial officer. In the Excel sheet, that's your head, then your heart. And I already said in the things, the gut brain is rather important in the three little things I came aware of. The gut brain is our oldest brain. 500 million neurons, 500 million brain cells. And for the people who were there yesterday or didn't know it for, we all started as a digestive system. When you look at one cell in your body, or you look at the most primitive living creatures, probably in the sea, you will see they're almost based around a digestive system. Food comes in, food goes out. And for the people who love oysters or mussels, you can almost see that system there. And the beauty of your gut brain is, and therefore it's so important when you think about leadership, when you think about coaching, it is an independent brain that actually can survive all by itself. Your heart cannot survive by itself. There's no living entity in this world that's around the heart brain, with the heart brain as a center. There's no living entity in this world that is around a head brain. But there are many, 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 many living entities that are actually around a gut brain, where the gut brain is actually the living organism, almost. And that means, if it's a living organism, it has all the qualities to survive, to reproduce, to find food, to know what's a predator or not a predator, to escape, to fight off. So it has all the basic instincts to survive. And the beauty is, if you look at us, we are a gut brain from the tongue to a part we sit on our chair. And around us, we have arms, legs, heart, head, etc., etc., etc. But your gut physically is still an independent entity. It can make decisions, even if and we're not going to do that for a test, say we would break your spine and your central nervous system would be broken somewhere, your gut will still operate. And it will not work for the heart or the head. Okay. And the core question of the gut is actually, am I safe? Will I win? Will I get it? Will I lose? The fear of losing is there because you eat or you are eaten. You win or you lose. That is a black and white system. Now, that is one way what I test in the more than 5,000 tests I did. Which of these three are your most dominant in decision making? And what I mean in the test, because that's good to know, it's not you are not a gut-brain dominant, you're not a gut-brain person, a heart-brain person, head-brain person, but which brain is the most dominant in your decision making? So the higher the score, the more, say, you could say, louder it is in decision making. Just imagine you have three people at your table, and one just is a screamer, one is silent, and one just likes to whisper sometimes. Who gets the most attention? Who is the screamer most of the times? Those are the three brains. It does not mean your other ones don't function, only we listen less to that when we make a decision, and we don't wait to make the decision. So if you ever heard of Daniel Kahneman thinking fast and slow, the Nobel Prize winner, it's you could say the system one thinking. You take an action before you really think about it. It's what you do actually automatic. You could say your habits. That's how you choose them. That's actually the most dominant brain. And as you can see, and I made a joke about Ariana, only 3% of us, and Ariana is just in that little band width, has an almost equal score because it's 34, 34, 37. That's only three points away. I see that as equal because the bandwidth was 3 or 4 I took. And so in the bandwidth of 3 differentiation or 4 differentiation, only 3% of the population of the 5,182 tests have that score. So Ariana, you're unique in this part. In this part. The other 97% are just like me, different. And that means we have 1 or 2 of our brains are more dominant. And I think if you think about it by yourself, you can come back to it. Hey, if I make my decisions now and look back in my life, did I more follow my heart? Did I now follow more my logic? Did I now follow my gut feelings in my decisions? And you'll come aware, you will find a trend in there. And when I did my test or developed the test, I thought I was more equal like Ariana. My self-awareness was probably more optimistic. I knew it was not true because my heart brain and gut brain was much higher than my head brain. If you look at my life, it makes much more sense. I follow my passion, I follow what's good, and I just make it happen. And later on, I think, oh, I should have thought about this. And I can have multiple examples where that happened. The good thing is, the heart and gut brain dominance, it means you make things just work because they just make it work. The pity is they have to say, fix everything they did not think about. If you have a 3 brain more equal score like Ariana, then theoretically, all the 3 voices are just as heard, so she can choose much more on the spot, much more almost situational leadership. Unless, and that's not tested, some protectors, say some limiting beliefs are really sometimes context-wise overruling it. And limiting beliefs, I mean, some people have to believe I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or whatever it is. I cannot do this. All those kind of beliefs some people have. These can context-wise overrun it. Now, that's what we test in the heart, in the head brain. That's what we tested in the 5,182 tests. What triggered me to make the test is McKinsey's leadership survey they had 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They studied almost 190,000 leaders in 81 organizations. And they came aware that the whole list of 20 behaviors that were really important for leaders, but only 4 actually account for 90 or 89% of great and average leadership. 4 are really dominant. What makes the difference? And I really found it interesting. Okay, if 4 are really dominant, that means we could train them. We can coach people more, that we can test people more of it. Now, what are the 4? solving problems effectively. What makes sense? If you cannot be a great leader if you cannot solve a problem. And in my words, it's more in head-brain activity. You have to make an analysis, structural thinking, cause and effect analysis, pro, cons, what will be the effect on long-term cost, etc. Makes sense. It's also operating with a strong results orientation. Especially if an American company, shares has to be done. You have to make decisions, you have to be executing, you have to be under pressure, you have to make it happen. I love sports. You have still 5 minutes in the game. You're 2-1 behind. A gut-brain dominant approach will maybe make it win, because they go to the last second. They push harder. These are the people who have the gold medal. These are the sporters we say admire, who just won one more, who almost come vomiting over the finish. I love sports, and maybe you think, oh, that's gross. I love that passion to see your sports. Makes sense up to now. What is also, and that was quite interesting, seeping different perspectives. And that's a heart-brain, head-brain dominance. That means to embrace different opinions at the table. And so if you're in your leadership team or management team, hey, we have a CFO, an HRO, and COO. We have all different kind of competences and qualities. Can I see different perspectives to make it there? So it means the willingness to engage, that's hard, but also the skills to listen and really know what they say. That's number 3. What's the 4? Supporting others. Being a team player, is that strange? Sorry, I started laughing when I saw it once. And that's really a heart-brain thing, because supporting others means you put the need of others for your own needs. That means you set sometimes a team before your own team. And it all made sense to me. So when I saw this, and you see already my mapping of the brains underneath it, I thought, if we put now those together, so then how would it actually look like? Well, what does it mean for my test? Can I see somewhere what's happening in leadership? This is the 2 perspectives that brought me to this whole presentation. Now to the scores. Boom. Right away, throw them in. So what do those 2 things mean? On the left side, you can hear I'm always sometimes left and right. I see it on my left, but it's on the slide on the right side. Okay. Anyhow, the dominant brain global population, the little circle. You see there which percentage has, say, in the 3 scores, the highest score. So Ariana, with her gut brain score 37, fits in the 10.9%. By the way, according to my girlfriend, I also fit in there. I always say I'm more heart brain, but my girlfriend still likes to disagree with me. And so that's 10%, highest gut brain score. 40% highest heart brain score, 40.9. Head brain score, 48% is the highest score. So that's in the 3 scores, the highest score. The other one is you could say the mean is the average. If you now average all them out, you see this score. Head above heart, above gut. So yeah, Ariana, we both have a higher gut-brain score. And what does it actually say? That although the gut-brain score is still now, say, there, only a few of them really outperform that score there. They would say there are rare species. Or rarer species. So this is what it said. And when you look at it and you think about, say, what McKinsey said, that makes sense. Head, heart, gut, yes, you need all 3 of them. But the question is, how make you those decisions? Can they all communicate? And maybe there, you saw the achievement, only 11%, if we round it up, is really gut-brain achievers. And that also could give an answer why not everybody likes to be, say, the alpha male or the alpha female, or likes to run to the max to win it. And of course, you really need that quality there. If you have questions, just ask, because I can talk hours about it. But this is what it shows. And now, okay, this I could not let it walk in, but this is actually, in my opinion, extremely interesting. This is how we fit in all our, say, roles. And the funny part is, if you go from left to almost right, you see a change happening from, say, the tech the tech profiles, the finance profiles, where it's logical, the head brain is the most dominant. You don't like to have an IT professional who has extremely huge heart brain and doesn't have any logic in his head. I think your software really would mess up. The same actually with the CFO. You like that your Excel sheet works. But you see it's happening in middle management, senior management, C-suite. You see the head brain goes down and actually the gut brain goes up. See almost like a little shift happening. And if you then look, say, in our profession, at least in my profession, because I'm a coach and therapist, you see that actually we have almost an opposite score. Our heart is always, in average, the highest. So yes, Ariana, we are a rare species in the coaching world if you're a coach. On average, health therapy has the lowest gut-brain score. Executive coaches, a little bit higher gut-brain score, and life coaches did there. And most of us have a multiple role in there, so you could say, okay, we fit somewhere in the middle. And now already, if you would put those together, or you put those next to, so you see actually what's happening. Where the C-suite is in the head brain, we are more in the heart brain, say in primary response most of the times. And the gut brain is higher than us in the primary response. So it means in the coaching, there could be, say, sometimes a disconnect what we experience and don't experience. But also, say, for the people who help middle management to go to the higher career ladders, you become aware, hey, we have to, quote, but we have to change some of their qualities, how they perceive, say, the decision making. Because we talk here about decision making. A high score means that's the brain you use for decision making. Primary, or the first. And so if we make an extremely black and white score, they choose more head brain and are more actually, the C-suite managers or C-suite leaders are on average the most balanced score. So the difference between the lowest score and the highest score is the closest to each other. All the others have a bigger variation. So you could say that the higher you get, the more balanced you get. What actually makes sense in my opinion, but this is there. I'm just going to throw some. This is what we said. Probably for the average coach, this is different. And I think in my training at least 300 coaches, and I can tell you that's true. And there is no right and wrong in that, because you need a big heart brain to listen to the boring stories of your clients. You need a big heart brain to listen to the story you heard already from 5 different clients. You think, okay, I know the story. Oh yeah, I know where it's going. And still you have to be interested. Oh, no, it's interesting. Wow. Instead of thinking, okay, and I heard this 5 times. Let's cut some corners. I'll give you the answer. That's not what we do as coaches. So we listen and we empathize and we sympathize and we ask beautiful questions and let the client find it out by itself. Therefore, we need a big heart brain. Makes sense. It's extremely useful. Only if you coach C-suite, and I call here especially C-suite clients, they are different. They like to have analysis. They like to understand it. They're used, and we come back later to that, to this part, decides with incomplete data, and they're interested in their own benefit. Their gut brain is much higher. They don't take, and I saw that in so many different clients, they don't have the patience for all the questions and reflections. Sometimes they just like to cut the corner and like to have an answer. They don't like question number 5. Sometimes they just like to have direction. And they take action without all the information. And it makes sense, the higher you get, sometimes the less real concrete information you have. So it is, how do we deal with that? This became the most interesting, not the most interesting. I found this the most interesting part. And for the people who skipped statistics when they were young on high school, sorry for that. But what does this show? the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain. And the text is above. So what you can see here in the head brain, that middle management is gray, senior leadership is purple. Let's say the extremes in the high scores become less. But we already saw that the score of the head brain goes down. But this is the high score. So this is really, I score extremely high on head brain. This is really, I score low on head brain. In the heart brain, there's almost no differentiation. It only goes up a little bit. The heart brain does not change really in direction in higher or lower scores. It just goes a little bit deeper, you could say. And in the gut brain, you see the opposite move from the head brain, but we already saw. They get more higher gut brain scores. And for the people who love statistics, P is 0.9. And you think, what the hell is P? I understand totally the question, because I also had to think about that when I put it in. That means actually, what is the chance that this is just luck? That this is just a lucky guess. And if it's 0.00.9, that means there's almost no luck in there. It's almost really statistically true. The funny part is the other part in the P is 0.88 in the heart, means actually this is always true. There is no chance that there is an other outcome than this. And the last one, for the gut, it is also the same score as this. But again, it's no luck. But this is just how it is. So if you had 1 or 10 more, you would still have this. That means if you have 10 more, you still have the same outcome. That is what it means. Now, for the people who really love statistics, and sorry, I once studied commercial engineering when I was young, and I worked in IT when a couple of years. So actually, I love numbers and I love statistics. So for the people who think, holy macaroni, what's happening here? My excuses. But it gives you some insight. I see Rania also starts laughing, so it's probably a similar background. But this is interesting if you think about it and look about it. So the head brain, you can see the colors are the C-suite leaders. The gray is the middle management. And you can see that the head brain score drops in very high score. So just to say, what does it mean, scores? I did not explain it, I come aware. So if you do the test, you can have a score of 105 in total. You saw it when you did the test, you saw it back in the email if you read it. So I add up all the questions and you come to a total of you can get a total of 105. And that means you can have 45, or in case of Ariana, I will use her because I know her score hard, 37 gut, 34 heart.
Hi, Jonathan, sorry. But your screen, because you've got the presentation only on part of the screen, it's very small on our screens. Could you maximize your presentation so that it takes up the whole of your computer screen, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
That's a good thing. Does this help?
Much better, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I would have loved if you had said it in the beginning, because this is what I did not test with Zoom. Excuse me. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so I can go back all the slides and start over again, or? Kidding. So, but this makes interesting. So you see that in the really high score, so where a senior leader scores 45 for the head brain, doesn't happen so much, but it happens much more for middle management. So they can score 45 or higher much more often. And say the mid scores, you see the senior leaders are higher in that. In the heart brain, you see there's almost no difference so much. In the high scores, a little bit more difference, and in the very high scores, a little bit less. That's why the peak goes up and down a little bit, because it's almost the same. There's not a lot of difference there. But now you look at the gut brain, there you can see a massive difference happening. And the low scores, big, but for the low scores for the senior leaders, less. Mid scores, they outperform, but in the high scores and very high scores, they're still much higher. In the very high scores, although the percentage is low, it's double. And so they score much easier high senior leaders. And if you think about, say, that gut brain ID, The gut brain actually is responsible for survival, is responsible for winning, is responsible for making it happen. And if you're really in the C-suite, you really have to make it happen. There is nobody you can blame anymore for your mistakes. You cannot say, oh, my management did, because you don't have a management above you anymore. The middle management can still say, yeah, but my upper management doesn't support me. Yeah, there's still something like a scapegoat. But the higher you get, the less chance you have for hiding your failures. It doesn't mean you don't, but less. Yeah, so that really makes it interesting.
Christoffel, there is a question in the chat whether it's the same for men or women.
Oh, yeah, that's an annoying thing because I never asked about female and male in my test. I'm adding that now because when I made this test, I thought the less questions I ask about people, the more willing they are to fill it out. Because some people have something like, if I fill out all my data, I don't like that. I'm now adding that to put it in there because I saw in my 12 protector test and the limiting belief test, you could say, that I launched a little bit less than a year ago. I asked some more questions and I become aware that people are not always willing to answer those. Yeah, so it's there, but I'm now adding it in. So it's a pity I don't know, Cindy. I would love to add that. I asked actually Claude, based on the emails and the names, if he could do an analysis for me, but I found it a little bit, not safe enough to put it in my slide pack here. Because that's more, an assumption on naming and those kind of things. But for the people who are interested, I will not do it now, but later on I can even give you some insight about what Claude said about that. Yeah, because it gives some insights, but I thought it's not, I cannot prove it's true because I don't know if, that name is really true. Yeah, so if that fits, because some names could be discussable. There is some interest, and there are some differences between men and female. The higher they get, by the way, in the areas, the less difference there is. The higher they get, the less the differentiation happens. Because then the higher you get, it is less important if you're female or male. It's more if you deliver or not deliver. That's what I can tell you already, because that made also totally sense to me. That was rather clear. Other things I'm a little bit, less dominant about. But yes, I now open my chat so you can see it. So, yes, maybe he doesn't see messages. Maybe say, thank you so much, Viviana, for making me aware. Because when I opened my big screen, actually everything else was pushed away. So, if you then would that in it, what is now the difference between middle management and senior leadership, just to give a different kind of color, you see what's happening. You see actually a massive difference. They use their head much, much less as primary decision source. The other voices are more heard in my, if I say it like that. And that makes it much more interesting also to know from, hey, you have to become more balanced. And if you then look back at McKinsey, they also show actually need, in my words, 3 brains to be amazing leaders, because those 4 traits are actually over the 3 brains separated. So it made sense. Now we should drop in a difference in there. What's happening and not happening. No, sorry, that was not. So if you now think about what does it mean, and let's now go, what is data actually showing us? And I put here a huge word in this, is development of trust. So in my analysis, and I thought about it longer than I would have loved to do actually, is from what does it really now mean? Because if you think about the gut brain score, the gut brain is also an egocentric brain. Yeah, me, myself, and I. If you think about the lion and the deer, the lion is not really empathic. You think, oh, the deer has a little one. Let's not eat him or her. Kill is a kill. And so it's an egocentric brain. I thought, but how does it work then in leadership? What does it actually mean? Because the gut is not only about killing another. The gut brain is also about, trust. Because where do we feel trust? How do we know we can trust somebody? And what does trust mean? Trust means actually, you're not going to shoot me down. And that's a survival language. So I came aware from, hey, trust is an important part probably from what it means for leadership. And if you think about what the gut-brain, if you have a higher gut-brain score, there's a huge chance that you have more trust in yourself, self-confidence. It's easier for you to trust the process, and it's easier to trust others. And also trust actually decision-making on incomplete data. If you have more confidence, self-confidence, you could say, oh, I can wing it. It actually means, hey, I go for it. If you think about, we talked about the lion, or I talked about the lion and the deer, the lion does not have all the complete data, will I catch it? So based on incomplete data, it has to make a decision, will I run or not run for it? The higher you get, also the more incomplete data there is a lot of times happening. Because what will happen over 1 or 2 or 3 years? Now, I don't know if you follow the shares and etc. Who of you would have predicted that the tech shares would have doubled almost? Almost nobody. Me neither, by the way. But we made the decision to, whatever, invest in whatever it is. And it's actually making a decision incomplete data. If you think about C-suite leaders, they think about strategic processes. What will we do over 3 years, over 5 years in a company? That's incomplete data. Because we don't know how artificial intelligence will actually really change our whole landscape. What will happen? We still have to make decisions. And also, if you think about biology, if you like to open your heart and your head to really action, it means you need trust. If you don't trust somebody, you don't open your heart. If you don't trust somebody, you're not going to be totally curious what somebody else is going to say. And you stay more in your own profile. And your gut brain is actually almost a little portal that says it's allowed to open all 3 of them. I call it, say, curiosity in the mind. I call it the 3-brain state. So your open mind, okay, I'm interested in learning. The opposite is a closed mind. I'm judging, clinging to old learnings. How many of you didn't ask once the client, are you coachable? And what do we mean, are you coachable? Are you willing to embrace new concepts and new ideas? Are you willing to look at yourself in the mirror and actually become aware of its pros and cons? Are you curious in what could change? An open heart means for self and others, allowing emotional flexibility. It allows actually to connect with people. Closed heart is indifference and disconnection. For the people who once got, say, a heavy divorce or break up behind them, knows at least how it feels for 1 month that you are not interested in anybody of the other sex or the same sex. Because they're all beep, 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 beep. At least that for 1 month. I'm talking about myself and not about you, by the way. That was my experience. And an open gut, it sounds rather horrible if I say an open gut. What I mean is that you have a trust in yourself, process, and the capacities of others. And there is no fear, anger, or other kind of things in there, or analysis paralysis. If those 3 can be functioning, you have an amazing thing. So that was from the analysis. Then I thought, okay, actually, if these are the scores, and this is what McKinsey says, are we practicing what we preach? And when you look at the Gallup organization, employee engagement is 23%. If you look at McKinsey, how many of the employees find their leaders engaging and inspiring? It's 25%. McKinsey, BCC, and Accenture, if they do change culture projects, they have a success rate between 26 and 41%. And 56% of the global employees or globally are struggling. They're not in a happy spot. And especially now, if you look at Generation Z and also millennials, how much burnout and other kind of things are actually happening, much more than, say, in older generations. So if you look at those scores, you start thinking, hey, what's happening there? So these were the researches of me and others. Well, what does that mean, actually? Should we change the scores, or what is happening? So I thought, okay, let's put them next to some models there. And for me, if you look at it, And in the analysis, that one of the things that is, and if you read the book, what brought you here will not bring you there from Marshall Goldsmith or other books, hey, it's actually a lot of, say, self-confidence and trust is less there, making decisions what's not. Most people are not trained on ambiguity, to make decisions just by shooting from the hip, except, say, the President of America loves it. And you can become President of America with that, so we can discuss how bad it is. So I looked at one of the, say, Harvard professors who is rather, say, popular. If you don't know him, it's a really good book, The Trust Factor. He did massive research about, say, what helps now to get a massive trust company in there. So how can we get that gut system more aligned in there? And he called the books also oxytocin as a word of the little steps that there's there. Because oxytocin, one is the neurotransmitter or hormone that creates bonding, released by the heart actually, and also by the head in the amygdala, but also by the heart. How do we release that? And he showed that if people have a high trust factor, that these are the results. More engagement, more energy at work, less stress, more life satisfaction, less burnout, higher productivity. So if you read the research of him, we are almost stupid not to train trust in people or in organizations. So coming back from that from the research, okay, so what does that mean? And when the gut is open, the trust is flowing. Okay, what can we do? And so I put, say, his advices, what are the 8 points of him, say, in the 3 brains, to map it out, hey, what's happening there, if you look at the scores. If you have a gut system that works properly, you dare to be honest and vulnerable. You dare open information because you're not afraid, and you dare to delegate. The percentages actually are how much it contributes to the trust. So 82% means if you do this, it contributes 82% to the trust in the company or in the team. And by the way, who of you does have a relationship or is married? Do you think that honesty and vulnerability helps in your relationship? Could you have a relationship without it, where you know your partner is actually not honest and isn't vulnerable? So it makes sense to us. And by the way, delegation, just say to your partner, could you please do dinner for me? I don't know if it's a delegation or just shoving off. That is still a question, but that's another thing. Passion, the heart, is caring and building relationships and investing in people. Also really important. And the head helps you to do clear expectations of performance and praise and recognition. So you see in all the 3 brains, again, if you map it to McKinsey or to other things, are needed. And the funny part is, say, that this one scores the lowest, also in the average scores. If you can remember the average scores, say easy 40, 40, 28, something like that. This one was the lowest. If you think about it, think, hey, that's interesting. Because also, say, the companies are not always so good in all the kind of things. Would in more trust or an open or self-confidence gut help companies to actually increase? And actually, it's true because they are more willing to do this. If you feel confident, you don't mind to share. If you're confident, you don't dare to talk about the mistake you made. If you're confident. If you don't have a trust factor, you hide those kind of things. So it actually makes sense to have you could say, a gut brain score that is higher. I put it also in, people maybe know that Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of the team. There's also, people who do team coaching probably know this. And he has 5 dysfunctions why a team is not working. And again, trust is coming there. Every time in my whole research, where trust is almost circling every time around trust. It's also the first pillar or the first layer in the 5 dysfunctions. Without trust, all the others don't work. And trust is that gut thing, the absence of trust. And if there's no absence of trust, you also don't have, you have a fear of conflict. You have a lack of commitment, avoidance, accountability. And again, you see, we need all of them. And we could say, I've just made them bread. Avoidance, accountability. Also, there's a head brain invoiced in there. Because accountability actually is an assessment of yourself. Can I do this? And can is not only saying internal, but also an assessment from the head. Inattention to results is also gut brain, because gut brain likes to win. And so there's a lot of gut in there, in the dominance. So looking at all those things, what does it mean actually? So what helps to train a gut and what actually suppresses it? If you like to almost gut training, that is stakes with reversible consequences. It is making, and who of you has kids? Okay, so when you had to learn your little boy or girl to walk, can you remember that moment that you had to let low of their hand, so they had to stand on their own feet, and then sometimes they did not succeed and fell back on a diaper? That's actually what we talk about, stakes with reversible consequences. So you make decisions where you can fail, but it is not, say, massive. Because if you let go of the hand of the little baby and it fell back on his diapers, nothing really serious happened. It did not break right away all his bones. He did not throw it out of a plane with a parachute. And so this training actually to do risk is training actually to make mistakes. Actually, you train people to make mistakes. So they start actually getting more confidence in doing so. And it's actually mentorship for become active leaders. And then the good gut active leaders, and not the narcissistic peeps, but who actually can be embodied. And the model is, hey, how do they do that? Learn from the masters. So what in neurolinguistic programming is called mastering the masters. The strategy of the masters is copying what they do. Actually, all how we learn. Because as little babies, we look at our parents and we copy them. Extremely important is somatic and reflective practice. I call it also in a larger slate, I'll also come back to that. Actually is becoming aware what your brain senses, what your brain says. Becoming aware, can I listen to my heart? Can I listen to my gut? Can I listen to my head? And actually, what does it mean, those sensations? And what I mean is that, and when you have, let's say, almost a knot in your stomach, it could mean different things. It could mean you're hungry. It could mean that you're fearful because you're going to a plane. It could mean actually you're fearful because you're going to have to talk to one of your most important clients who has a complaint. So the same crunch in your stomach could mean different things. So getting an awareness, what do those signals mean, is extremely important. Because how can you listen to your gut or follow your heart if you don't know what the signals are? Or what do they mean? Everybody who once made the wrong decision with a partner, and I right away raise my two hands, knows that following your heart, if you cannot really listen, what does my heart say, or my gut say, can end up in an expensive divorce. A failure that is named, not hidden. So it's also an allowance for adding mistakes. So creating the vulnerability without getting a slap on your fingers. Of course, if you just burn all the reserves of the company, I don't think you just, that's a little bit too big, but just a little mistake. You just say what's happened. We come back to that honesty, honesty of what Paul Sack was saying. This is training honesty. Now, what suppresses? I just put it, cultures of too much certainty. And where I don't know is treated as weakness. I was once coaching, and this is fun, a risk team, risk in an insurance company. Now, where do they live on? Certainty. Only for the data they had to present, certainty was important. But in their leadership styles, certainty was not always there. And we really had to train them to split the certainty feeling. You have to be certain maybe of the data of a risk analysis when you present we can do this or not do in an insurance company. But that does not mean if you make a decision about a new employee or changing maybe some roles, that you can do the same kind of risk analysis with all the same data. Sometimes you just have to make a guess. And it means also the over-reliance on data and frameworks. And what they call sometimes critical thinking. Think about yourself. Let's just think about yourself. What is happening? And thinking is also your three brain thing. Yeah? What do I feel inside myself? And for all the people who are in the leadership roles, promoting the best salesperson to sales manager, promoting the best data analyst to the manager role. And that's what you see in many companies. The best player becomes the manager, and that is sometimes setting up their failure because they need different competences. And punishment for naming mistakes. Okay? Create a fear factor. And now from a different kind of winner, so I'm just putting here a little bit of judgment in there. Many development programs, I know it's a little bit of judgment, but based on my research, it's actually true because I asked to check some popular programs from the MBA kind of schools to say some commercial one. You see there's a lot of emotional intelligence training. That makes sense. I don't say emotional intelligence is wrong. Improve self-awareness, strengthen relationships, better communications, build psychology safety. All great, but it misses that step. What do you need to get there? What Marshall Goldman says, what brought you here doesn't bring you there. Having more emotional intelligence does not mean you get there. And so in my opinion, based on the data and all the research I did, it's actually we need also something else. Development of vulnerable confidence. And that means I have confidence, but I dare to be vulnerable about my mistakes. Decisive presence of incomplete data. Decisiveness. So dare to make a decision while you don't know everything. And the development of the whole system, metacognition. And we'll come back to metacognition, what I mean with that in there. And commitment practice, act before full analysis. Just jump in the water for the moment. I promise you it's not 30 centimeters deep, you break your neck, but just jump in it. It's 2 meters or 3 meters or 4 meters deep. It's okay. And interoperceptive sensibility and interoperceptive awareness. Difficult words, but for people who know that concept is extremely important, it's not so much trained. So what do I mean with those? Interoperceptive awareness, the capacity to sense the body's internal state and know how reliable that sensing is. What you spoke. Okay, can I listen to my heart? Can I listen to my gut? Can I listen to my head? And what does actually those signals mean? When you get, everybody knows, when you get afraid, your decision making is not always the best. Because most of you're afraid, you like to escape the pain. It doesn't mean you're going right away to the most happiest place. So becoming aware what is actually the fear and where is the fear about helps you to make a better decision. It's based on the research of, now you see the names there happening. And also the somatic marker hypothesis, the decisions in uncertainty. And that is also research from Damasio, but also from Swart. Is it Swart? Okay, now I didn't put his name in and now right away start doubting about it. That's decision making. You can see that he did massive research also with firefighters and other people who make decisions in split seconds without knowing all the data. But by bodily signals, just they felt something, okay, we have to go in the building or not go in the building. You have to somewhere trust, now you could say your experience, but actually you have to trust now what's out there, the sensors, the energy, the symptoms. There's massive research done, say, by an other one also say on firefighters and nurses and people in ERs who have to make split second decisions that are really have massive impact. Vertical development. Okay. So vertical development is not mean follow an extra MBA, it's actually integrate all the systems that are there. And self-authoring mind, as Keegan says. Internal authority, keep that trust factor there. based on different kind of researches from the literature, it makes sense that we start training this. And it all somewhere said it in different kind of names. And it is trainable and coachable and measurable, by the way. I did not put all the data in there because I thought otherwise people think, oh wow, this really becomes a data analysis, but it is measurable and knowable. Like, and what happens, and I spoke about the other test I did, because when I did this test last year, I was actually 2 years ago, where we think from what happens now when we fall back in protective behaviors? Why do people sometimes fall back? And what you can see, and I call them protectors, if the head brain gets stressed, if say head brain dominant people get stressed, then what happens? They become more analytic, or more perfectionism, or more order keeping, or more observing. Yeah? They fall back in these kind of traits to find security. So all these traits are giving more security. This gives more data, more analysis, more insight, more knowing. It doesn't mean it's better, but this is a fallback when we get stress. And knowing what happens inside your own system helps you also to stop it or work with it. When you look at the heart, this happens. And maybe for all the coaches with a big heart brain score, you can recognize this. That you are sometimes called a pleaser. That you're taking more care of somebody else. Eh? Some people, hey, this sounds like the 5 love languages. Yes, it has connection with that. More approval seeking. Did I do a good job? Cindy, do I do a good job in this moment in my presentation? Just like to have some approval from another Dutch person. Please say yes, otherwise I cry. Thank you, not kidding. This approval seeking. Thank you so much. Not kidding. More peacekeeping. Are we all happy here? Not speaking out. For the people who know the sitcom Friends, you know the sitcom Friends? If you don't, okay. You know Monica? Monica does this behavior when there is stress. She starts pleasing. She starts approval seeking. She's also a chef and they love to do caretaking. While Ross more falls back in his head brain dominance. Neurological. As being professor in old animals. Kidding. What does it with the gut brain if they get stressed? Okay, Ariana, now we're going to look at you. Kidding. And everybody has got, I can look at myself. More enduring, yeah? We just bite the bullet. We just push harder. We don't give up. How do you mean the presentation has to be done for tomorrow? Okay, I will make it a red eye presentation. I will go on till it's finished, to 2 o'clock in the morning. More controlling. I like to have all the data. I like to be on top of it. We don't delegate. I take everything back to me. More rebelling. I do it my way. That's a lot of times my attitude. Okay, I will do it my way. I break all the rules just to get there. And there are rule breakers, the rebels. Because we have to get there. And more performing. What I mean with performing is we just put a mask on our head and say, no, we're good. It's all good. Doesn't it hurt? No, it doesn't hurt. It's okay. I can do this. These are behaviors we could fall back in when the pressure happens. Now, if we come back to the advices, getting an awareness of this is extremely important for yourself if you'd like to become a higher leader, or if you start coaching leaders, or if you start coaching people. What is their fallback system they're maybe not aware of? Are they aware of the signals that are happening there? The 3-5 thing that changed how you select and develop leaders is my assumption. I know there's much more, but let's make a strong statement there. A little bit controlling statement there. The same profile is not the same performance at the next level. I have told it so many, I think I'm not the first one who says this. But this is the mistake I see in so many companies. And by the way, I heard from a friend of mine who's headhunter in a rather well-known headhunting company, that in a lot of cases, 40% of the new placed people will not be successful in 18 months. Because they don't actually, they're profiled for an old role and they were put sometimes in a new role. Only when they are put in the same role, they are really successful, unless they get a lot of coaching in their new role. And so they changed actually also, they now put coaching when they place somebody in there, especially for new roles. A low gut is your structural ceiling. That is at least what I see. Yeah? If you have a low gut-brain score, somewhere your ceiling in the company is hitting. And with the low gut, it means that you have that trust factor. Trust myself, trust the others, trust the process, trust the incomplete data. If that is low, you somewhere hit the ceiling. And that's not a glass ceiling, that's just a really hard brick ceiling. And the one, and I just put the name in there, EQ development without trust biochemistry is incomplete. I love EQ. I got the big books of emotional intelligence here, so I'm not saying it's wrong, but it is not all. You need more. You need an embodiment. You need a trust factor. It's not training what a lot of people, and it is especially because when people talk about emotional intelligence, a lot of times they talk about the emotional side, the heart brain side. Well, emotional intelligence is a little bit wider, actually, to be said, but I talk about the heart brain side of it. So, if you think about three brains alignment, in my opinion, it has 4 different things we have to train. Now you have to train actually what is your awareness of your 3 brains. You have to train the trust factor. Also coming back to Paul Zak. You have to really embody somatic practice, be aware of it. The funny part is one of the Dutch people in the Dutch business community in Madrid here is a former chief learning officer of McKinsey. And he said in many McKinsey offices, they put actually somatic processes in there, like they do meditation or mindfulness before meetings, all this kind of stuff. So 7 minutes of mindfulness of meeting to really embody the system. And I thought, isn't it amazing? McKinsey, one of those really toughy companies, put the soft skills in there because actually it helps. And whole system metacognition. The vertical system we spoke about. 4 different pillars, if you like, do development. And the funny part is all of this is measurable and trainable and coachable. So it's not something like a whooshy, 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 let's sit on the grass and do some meditation and feel the energy and, oh, I feel more energy. It is measurable. It doesn't mean that sitting on there with your fingers like this is not working, but it is more concrete, it is measurable. And just one thing to put, say, my data and everything I say also in context. I put it in one thing. The assessment is there, 105. It is, say, 5,218. 15 languages for it. And the most was English speaking, followed by Croatian, Turkish, Italian, and Norwegian. The test came out. I have 620 leaders in there. And that's enough, according to all the statistics, to give these conclusions about. You need something like 200 in total. I have a 620 in total. And it connects with all the independent tests, Men and Whitney, etc., etc. The only thing that I could not really test in here is actually the question, how successful are the people? Are we not talking about the people who really are just underperforming, or are the 620 the overperformers? And by the way, asking managers if they're overperformers or underperformers, I don't know what's your experience. You never get an honest answer. It's hard to get an honest answer. Let's make it different. So it's the same as the McKinsey test. Because I spoke with one of the McKinsey guys, he says, yeah, we tested this, what's important. We could not say who really fits that the metrics. Only if you go, let's say, to the Gallup organization from good to great, then you see some more insights, what's really helping people to get, say, in that level. Does it go globally? Yes. Hey, it walks in differently. They're stable. I found all the language groups in the different kind of languages I had. You see the same kind of results in there. It makes maybe sense. I didn't have it for females and not females, and males. Sorry, females and not females. Excuse me, males and females, gender equality. But I saw a difference in Mediterranean and Latin people. They have a little bit higher heart brain baseline. And it makes sense if you know Spain, Italy, the Italian lovers, the heart of the South American culture, and they have a different kind of ID. And North European, East Asian responds a little bit higher in headline basis. But the arc stays the same, only the baseline differs, so it moves a little bit there. Okay, what is under gender by brain interaction? Your question. Industry by brain interaction and general shifts in millennial, not lineal. So in my new test I'm doing, I will ask 3 questions. Male, female, or binary, or don't like to say. What's your industry? That's actually in there, but a lot of people like to answer other. So in my test, more than half says other because I don't like to answer it. Well, all the industries are there. And the same in age, not everybody, I didn't add it in there. I will now add it also in the test. So I'll say maybe in 1 year, 2 years, I have also those insights in there. 5 findings in class, if you do the analysis in the deck, gut is the rarest brain. Profession predicts actually dominance, or dominance predicts profession. Chicken and egg. McKinsey maps clearly the 3 brains, and also if you look at Paul Zak and other kinds of things, head softens at the top, gut activates at the top. The absence of low gut is the ceiling. So, just one thing, they're not better leaders, better thinkers. They're not more emotional intelligence, and they have the trust factor. So Paul Zak was actually right to call the book Trust Factor. And by the way, if you like to learn it for yourself to become irreplaceable, I just have to say it because it makes sense. I train how you can work on 3 brains, how you coach people, and how you work on that. As being a master coach, I train people how to coach people by identifying which brain is talking, which brain is more or less dominant, and how can you create, say, that brain dominance? How can you get the blocks away that stop the heart or the gut brain or the logical brain actually from stepping in? Because most beliefs we have are heart brain or gut brain beliefs. So if we coach people on those, you can start helping to equalize the 3 scores. It happens in June and things, and if you like to have the cheaper option, and Ariana knows that, you can read in my books. That's just the price of, I don't have near a cup of coffee in Madrid, in the center. And if you like to have the cheapest option, the free option, like we love in Dutch, you do my 3 brains intelligence test. And you get the preview back, and you have already some insights. 3 ways how you can become the best you can. And some people here did my training. I see Sabrina Colombo in my screen here. She did my training. Besides, she's an amazing coach, by the way. So if you ever have questions, now see her name, you just link it in her, Sabrina Colombo. You find her on LinkedIn, and you say, the training of Christoffel, is it really good, or is it just one big performer and just one big blah, blah, blah? And she can tell you one-on-one the real honest truth, because I know her. She tells the truth, if you like it or not.